Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everyone. Thank you for participating in our side event here at the virtual high-level political forum. My name is Becky Malay. I come from the Philippines and I'm one of the global co-chairs of the Global Call to Action Against Poverty, or GCAP. We are a campaigning platform of national coalitions in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and Europe, and we are fighting poverty and inequality. This event would not be possible without the cooperation and very hard work of our partners. They are the permanent mission of the Republic of South Korea in the United Nations. We have the Action for Sustainable Development. We have Civicus, Save the Children, Help Age International, Action Aid, Project Everyone, and the SDG Action Campaign of the UN. Before we begin our agenda, I have some technical advisory for everyone. Speakers will have a maximum of 5 minutes each for their presentation. Please stick to the time. You will be given notice for your wrap up by Ingo. For the audience, we have allotted 10 minutes for questions to the panel. Please put your questions in the Q&A section of your chat, which you will find at the bottom right section of your window. And then please understand that we will try our very best to address your questions, but we will not have time for everybody to be accommodated. So please just send us an email after the event to keep in touch. And I'd like to make it known to everyone that this event will be recorded and we will endeavor to put it up in YouTube as soon as possible so everyone can access. Okay. As a background to our conversation, I'd like to say that we are in the midst of a major disruption in our world. COVID-19 is turning our lives upside down. We are at the turning point, and this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to reimagine and create a better future, to turn it around. Please join us to discuss in our event, Catalyzing Actions at the Frontlines. The title of this event is quite long, but it's very important because we have to see how we can catalyze actions at the front lines to support our communities to achieve transformative pathways in the decade of action and delivery for the Agenda 2030. To start off the program, we would like you to hear the opening remarks of our partner from the Republic of Korea. Let us all please welcome Ambassador Hyun Yong-jo.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you who joined this meeting. I've just arrived in New York 3.5 months ago. Now our meeting virtually is becoming a new normal. So we just witnessing in New York just proliferation of meetings. So my PR wanted to join this, but he couldn't because of other commitments. So I'm so glad that I'm able to join you. And if not for the pandemic, we would have gathered in New York at this time. But certainly not with this big audience. We have 105 participants joining this meeting. So it's ironically, it's a beneficial side effect of the COVID-19. We saved money and time, and as well as the emission of the CO2. So I'd like to welcome all of you to this side event. Let me first thank Madam Becky Malay, co-chair of the Global Call to Action Against Poverty, for co-organizing today's event in cooperation with the Action Aid, Action for Sustainable Development, Civicus, Help Age, Project Everyone, Save the Children, and UN SDG Action Campaign. Have I missed any?
Help Age.
No.
Help Age International.
Okay. I'd also like to express my deep appreciation to the panelists for joining us today to share their expertise and insights. The COVID-19 pandemic is hitting hard all measures of global human development. We are at risk of losing hard-won development gains in the face of its disproportionate impact on most vulnerable. In this light, it is self-evident that no single government or organization can address such pressing challenges. Civic engagement is becoming more important as we face the dual tasks of SDG acceleration and the COVID-19 response. Civil society has played a key role in bridging governments, citizens, the private sector, and other institutions. In the era of COVID-19, we expect civil society should act not only on their own, but also in collaboration with other stakeholders with a view to addressing exacerbated inequalities. So now I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce a bit of a story of Korea and its partnership with the civil society. First, Korea's response to COVID-19 can be best explained as transparency, rapid response, united action, science, together in solidarity, namely trust. As for the third element, united action, the Korean government's preemptive measures and transparent communication raised public awareness and public trust, which resulted in active and voluntary participation in personal hygiene practices and social distancing. It also led to an outpouring of support from volunteers whose activities range from disinfecting public places to distributing food and care packages to those under self-quarantine. This demonstrates that institutional approaches by the government should be fully supported by community-level implementation and monitoring efforts. Second, the Korean government has been engaging in the efforts to make civil society partnership more systematic. Korea's policy framework for government civil society partnership in international development cooperation, which was developed together with the Korean NGO Council for Overseas Development Cooperation, lays the foundation for our collective efforts to advance 2030 agenda, both at home and abroad. I'm personally proud to note that I'm also took part in the devising this the policy framework. This is also a way to ensure inclusivity in the decision-making process. Lastly, at the global level, Korea has been a strong advocate of inclusive multi-stakeholder partnerships. From our own experience of achieving economic and social development through partnerships, we have benefited from civil society's knowledge and capacity in reaching out to, empowering, representing, and defending people on the ground. In this regard, we will continue to share our lessons learned and actively contribute to unlocking potential of our civil society as an integral partner for sustainable development. We will also continue to partner with CSOs on SDG 5, SDG 10, 16, and global citizen education and support youth-driven global dialogues of the UN 75 initiative. Distinguished guests, as the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said at the town hall meeting for the civil society activities, we will only be successful if we are able to combine the institutional approaches with the approaches at the civil society level, the grassroots movement, and the public opinion in general. With this in mind, I look forward to rich discussions today on this topic of growing importance and relevance at the United Nations, as well as on the key takeaways from the previous week of action. To conclude, I'd like to reiterate that Korea will continue to work closely with the civil society and actively participate in helping the UN scale up multi-stakeholder partnerships to build a more sustainable, inclusive, and resilient world together. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It is very heartwarming to hear that you are very eager to pursue this partnership. This is what we're going to deliver to this event today. Okay, so now let's start with our panel. We have 4 community representatives. These are the people in the front lines that are actually working to very hard so that the SDGs Agenda 2030 in the midst of the COVID pandemic will be effectively addressed. So our first speaker is a human rights defender and journalist from Northern Zambia. May I call on Mary Chisu for her presentation. Mary, you have the floor.
I believe we lost Mary.
Okay, I'm very sorry due to technical difficulties. Mary has dropped out. Oh, I can see her here, but without video.
Connecting to
Mary,
audio.
are you ready? Okay, in that case, can we have Abidin? Abidin, can we have your presentation and then we'll have Mary after you. Abidin Olasupo is the co-founder of No COVID-19, a local community action from Nigeria. Abidin?
Right. Thank you very much, Becky. It's quite exciting to be here, and I sincerely appreciate you and other partners for putting up this platform. Abidin is my name. I work with a team of active volunteers in Nigeria. I co-founded a non-government organization as well, Brain Builders Youth Development Initiative, and an aspect of our program is around localizing the Sustainable Development Goals. In Nigeria, we are working with a team of data wrangler to really see how governments and our institutions could integrate the Sustainable Development Goals into their action plan. We are of the opinion that if Sustainable Development Goal will be achieved by 2030, there is a need to activate the last goal of the SDGs, which is collaboration and partnership with the goal. And in trying to do this, there is a need to localize it in such a way that people at different platforms with different level of education, regardless of their religion or socio-cultural belief, really align with the letter of the SDGs. We don't want to be at the next United Nations by 2030 and start thinking of, oh, we couldn't achieve the 2030 agenda. Then what do we do again? Because one of the major challenges that served as impediment to the Millennium Development Goals was as a result of the fact that developing countries started late. So how organizations, through different volunteers we work with across 36 states of the Federation and 774 local governments, have been trying to mobilize support to really get the government to activate the promise they made at the United Nations General Assembly in September 2015. So fortunately or unfortunately, the pandemic started, and the question has been, will the Agenda 2030 still be realistic? And the answer I've always been given is it's too early to talk about this. We don't know for how long this pandemic will be with us. So to be unprofessional, to just say, fine, with a few months that we have been in this pandemic, okay, this is what is going to happen to the Agenda 2030. But it has presented us an opportunity. What is that opportunity? It's the opportunity that as a country in Nigeria, there's a big challenge in our health infrastructure, and there's a need for adequate funding for that sector in Nigeria. So at No COVID-19, that started like more than 2 months ago, we are of the opinion that we are not only tackling the pandemic, we are of the opinion that there are 3 demic. The first one is the pandemic, the second one is the infodemic, the problem of fake news, and the third one as well is the issue of corruption demic. There is this challenge of trusting leaders in Africa. Citizens have problems with their leaders in the aspect of trust. So there is a need for us to tackle infodemic, corruption-demic, then the pandemic as well. Through our active volunteers that cut across different levels, we are trying to use data and technology to really reorientate the citizen for them to really know that the COVID-19 is really true. Because if you notice, there has been a geometric increase in the number of COVID-19 cases in Nigeria. The numbers are becoming high. Then the citizen kept on asking questions. Are these numbers manufactured? Is COVID-19 really real? There are a whole lot of myths around the COVID-19 pandemic as well. So through our own organization, the No COVID-19, we are trying our best to ensure that we get the information to people and really really make people to repose that confidence in the government that the COVID-19 is real, and they should listen to government regulation as a working. Through our platform as well, we are doing what we call matrix mapping. Matrix mapping is what we do. For example, we notice that a top political chieftain or a leader has contracted COVID-19. We try to, through his itinerary, map where he or she has been to, so that we can inform those who have came in contact with the person and get tested or get isolated. Another aspect of our work that we are doing is that we are also trying, we have a portal on our website where you can get tested for COVID-19. So amongst what has given us the opportunity, as far as this pandemic is concerned, is the fact that we could leverage on the power of young people, the youth power, to really plan better, and we are optimistic that with this area of young person, next time when we are at the United Nations for the HLPF, hopefully next year, we have something reasonable to really present. So once again, I sincerely appreciate you for giving me the opportunity to share about what we are doing at No COVID-19, and I will still be online to answer some questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abidin, and for keeping the time. And I'd like to ask the next speaker. Is Mary here? She's not, I don't see her. So we can go to Jane. Jane Anyango is a gender and disability activist from Kenya. She is part of the Leave No One Behind campaign project for the SDG and the Agenda 2030. So Jane, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. My name is Jane Anyango. I live and work in Kibera slums. And as you have mentioned, I work with women, and mostly women living with disabilities in the slums. And we are part of the Leave No One Behind. We are also the conveners of the National Grassroots Women Congress, where we bring in women from different informal settlements together to develop a voice to talk about issues that affect them in their daily lives. So about COVID-19, what we must learn, what we have learned as people living in the communities is that people don't plan with people in the communities in mind. Like we have seen a lot of interventions that are coming up, which are not inclusive at all, which don't speak to the people at all. We have had distribution of food that is just brought and just distributed, whether people, it's about survival for the fittest. So in Kibera we have had deaths, where we have had stampede, and when we are talking about stampede and we are talking about social distancing, it means that it's serious double standards. And we are lucky that it hasn't been so hard on us. We are seeing the numbers going high, but we don't have people down with COVID-19 yet. So what we have also learned is that we don't have proper data as far as who is where is concerned, because when we look at the interventions that the people are talking about, somehow at times they don't even speak to the issues that we have in the community. We have had tests, mass testing that have happened in the communities, and we didn't see high numbers when the mass testing was done. So our question is, why are the numbers really there so high, yet when we have the mass testing, we are not seeing these numbers? What is really happening in our different communities? So as communities, as people in the slums, we have come up with our own initiatives. There's an initiative called Adapt a Family, where we are trying to get people to adapt different families. Because of the numbers that are coming out, many people have lost their jobs. People don't want to employ people from Kibera because of the numbers that are coming out of Kibera, because people are scared of being infected with COVID. So many people have lost their jobs. Another thing is that the schools are closed. The children are everywhere. So our fear right now is that with these children everywhere, they are the ones who are going to contract COVID and bring back to us. We feel that the children would have been safer in school. Unfortunately, we are going to have our children out of school until 2021. People don't know what they're going to do with the children. The houses are so small. The fathers are there, the mothers are there. They are used to coming back in the houses and sleeping at night. But now here, everyone is in the house. There is no food. There is no water. We're having serious water scarcity since we started, this COVID madness started. And what is interesting is that I listened to our CS presenting yesterday, and he was talking about these beautiful programs that are giving us water in the slums. Call anybody in Kibera today, we don't have water. We get water only once in a week, and we fetch it the whole night. which is really tough for us. So what we'd like the government to do is that let the government work with communities. Let them bring people from the communities to the decision-making tables. We know what works for us. We know what works for us. We know the problems that we go through. And by not giving the people in the community an opportunity to be part of the decision-making processes, it means that their priorities are not taken in, because our leaders don't plan with us in their minds. In Kenya, we have something called the public participation, where no law is supposed to pass without coming back to the community. But it has not worked well for us till it goes the leader's way. So we are still just hoping that we are going to have an opportunity to be part of decision-making processes. The plan we have, we need data. We need data for everybody. We need to have our own mapping as people in the communities and map our risks, get information of who is living where, so that we are also able to inform and share about our priorities so that the elites can plan with us in mind. Otherwise, it's still going to be very tough on us. So we are very happy that we are part of this Leave No Man Behind campaign by GCAP, and we have been able to map, we've been able to know where women with disabilities live. So right now, when there are food rations, we are able to negotiate and have food taken to them where they are. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to Jane. That is a very clear picture that you are showing us in the affected communities, especially in the informal settlements and slums of Kibera in Nigeria, in Kenya. It's very clear what kinds of challenges that are being faced by people, especially now we are all in quarantine and employment and jobs are lost. So these are the issues that have come up, and we're calling for people's participation. Thank you so much, Jane. Next, can we have Lani from My World Mexico? Lani? You are muted, Lani. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, now
Okay.
Thanks a lot, and good evening, everyone. We are really happy to share with this panel with people that we admire a lot and we have worked with. It's a pleasure also for me to share my World's Mexico experience on behalf of our founder and executive director, Carol Arambula. We have mobilized ourselves since 2015, since the first advocacy for the SDG agenda. And to date, we have more than 2 million people that we have mobilized in Mexico. Hence, as we have stated before, on several occasions, I think we think as COVID not as an isolated crisis, but rather as a situation that has highlighted all the existing structures and inequalities around the globe. All of them are addressed in the agenda. And the pandemic, even if it has affected all the countries, I think in the global south, we face even more structural challenges related to domestic violence, for example, lack of healthcare systems, and fragile welfare systems that have caused even larger impacts on socioeconomic structures such as education, employment, and recovery capacities. And even such that challenging panorama, we have learned as My World Mexico that we can continue providing tangible results towards the SDGs, having innovative ideas and bring up solidarity. We have learned that we can use COVID not as a limitation, but rather as an opportunity to promote why it is so relevant that SDGs are accomplished and no one is left behind. The proactive environment from our team in our ambassadors and partners has made a huge difference when it comes to achieving results in pandemic times. We have had national campaigns in biodiversity, the Earth Day, the World Environmental Day. But I want to mention one clear example that has been the Solidarity Day campaign, together with the Action for Sustainable Development Network. That campaign we translated to Spanish and adapted all the campaign to the Mexican context. So we sent the political leaders the letter to the President of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, to the Presidential Office, the 23rd Agenda Liaison Office, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We addressed our willingness to have open discussions with them, and to collaborate in building back together, as well as to follow up the mechanisms of the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs. We shared this in our social media, and we received that day more than 300 messages of solidarity and the participation of 200 of our members and also society in general. The press release of that event was published even in some of our national media. So we have continued in our national campaigns, even if it's on digital formats, and the commitment of all the core team, the ambassadors and partners has accelerated the impact of our work from the community levels to the national scale. There is a genuine interest from the stakeholders to be informed and to collaborate towards the SDGs as the roadmap that we need to build back better. Throughout letters and dialogues, we have expressed also to the Mexican government a call to action considering the SDGs and other international mechanisms as baseline frameworks to work on the social and environmental crisis that cannot be further ignored to build a sustainable present and future. So we're looking forward to continue cooperating together with the implementation, the monitoring and evaluation, and the follow-up of the 2030 Agenda at the different terms. In order to make it happen, we would like to see from our government a focused response and recovery, taking into considerations the existing mechanisms that promote sustainable development, and that includes inclusion from economically excluded groups, like LGBT communities, migrants, refugees, people with existing medical conditions, and so on. In My World Mexico, we are committed to continue working together. We think that our goal is to accomplish the 2030 Agenda and to contribute with all the mechanisms that accelerate the SDGs. We are convinced that we need to provide tools to empower the local leaders, and we need everyone to be back together with SDG-oriented actions so no one is left behind from the sustainable development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lani. That's very inspiring coming from the young people. I think your actions and your engagements with government are really very important to pursue Agenda 2030 in the midst of these problems that we are facing. Do we have any news from Mary? Okay. Okay. At this point, I'd like to give us all a chance to view a video. We have a video entitled The Power of Activism. So this is meant to inspire everyone.
Not giving in. I'm not giving in. I'm not giving in. Ooh, I'm not giving in. Yeah.
Now let's go to the questions. I'd like to say that we will not be able to answer all the questions, but I will pick out a few from the Q&A section of our chat, in our screen. And we have a question from Omachoko Matthew. He says he is from Nigeria. And a question to Olasupu, how are you fighting the challenges that comes with this task you have embarked on, and how well have you tried to solve it while still being consistent with your work, as I have observed over the times? Okay, so I'll ask another question. We'll take 3 questions first and then give the people a chance to answer. So I hope, Abidin, that you have taken note of that question. We have a question here.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll give you the time to answer. I'll take 3 questions first. Matthew Hulbert, how does civil society fully engage in these important dialogues at a time when many charities and community organizations are fighting for their very survival? Okay, and then from Rachel E. Carillo, what have your respective countries done to ensure that the protections and health of displaced and homeless communities, especially when so many NGOs on the front lines aiding these communities had to pause their work in the light of the coronavirus? Okay, Abidin, please, your answer.
All right. Thank you very much, Macho Komatic, and I am sincerely impressed that we have a young person on this call who has been following the work we have been doing on COVID-19. The fact remains, I've got 7 years of experience in the development work. So I was prepared for this. Why starting the initiative? To be realistic, it has been challenging, especially without funding, especially with support, because there will be a point where you may be depressed as a person fighting the cases as well. The numbers we are seeing on a daily basis are not something encouraging. But of course, the challenges that come with it, how we have been fighting this is to personally encourage ourselves and our team members as well. Secondly, as well, is because we know we owe the country and the continent the duty to make our own positive contribution to development and at least flatten the curve. Sincerely, the government cannot do it all. There is a need for different institutions to collaborate together to really help in flattening that curve. So that is what I am committed to, and I was fortunate to have different young persons who are passionate and who really share the vision, and it makes it easy because it's not easy to be working for more than 3 months without stipend, without funding, without encouragement. And one of the major challenges we are also having is the conflicting data. State government one data and the NCDC will give you another data. So it will just go with the NCDC data to really give the citizen the very factual information that could be really tracked. And I'm happy to tell you that we have been cited by many academic journals in writing their publications about the cases of coronavirus in Nigeria. So it's been something that's enlightening me, that gives me pleasure that I'm making my personal together with an array of over 100 young people to really help in flattening the curve. So Becky, I wouldn't know if you want me to take the question from Matthew Robert.
Oh, yeah, okay. Oh, does anyone want to answer that besides you? Okay, just go ahead. Go ahead, Abidin.
So thank you very much, Matthew. The civil society space is a space where if you are not passionate or if you do not really have the desires to really make positive contribution, it's not a space you should go into. As a civil society person, I'm using my own as an example. There are a whole lot of challenges. We have staffs that we need to pay as well. We have all that thing that we need to do. But how we have been engaged in this important dialogue is it is something we need to do. The SCJ is 5 years already. This is a decade of action. COVID-19 will come and definitely go. But I'm going to be at the United Nations General Assembly by 2030 and start talking about we are not able to achieve SDG by 2030. What do we do next? So that's the reason why every serious civil society organization we need to be engaged in important dialogue like this, regardless.
Okay. Can Jane please answer the other question, and then
okay.
Yes, Abidin, let's give the chance to Jane. Okay, let's give the floor to Jane to answer the other questions about we're closing down because of quarantine. How do we intend to do our work?
Yeah, what I can say is that, life must go on. And we were just discussing in our office this evening that we have this remark from our minister, our cabinet secretary, saying that we cannot treat this pandemic normally. If we treat it normally, it's going to treat us abnormally. I'm saying that we have to treat it normally because it's already with us. It's us to take the precautions and not just draw very strong lines that are stopping us from surviving. Already we have known the precautions. We are taking the precautions in Kenya today. We are talking about hundreds of health workers who have tested positive to COVID. These are people with families. They are going on with their lives as usual. And if we don't treat this disease normally, it means that we are going to go into a lot of stigma. We are going to stigmatize people, and people are going to stop working, and life must continue. Right now, our education sector is completely down. I've seen someone asking about what we are doing about the e-learning that is taking place right now. E-learning is not applicable to a slum child or a village child, meaning we have so many children who have been left behind right now. In most of these houses, we have one television. Children, when they are alone, they have their priorities. They have things that they want to watch. These are children in different classes. How do they follow one channel? And then we have all these that are coming up with Zoom. This is serious discrimination. Very few percentage, very little percentage of Kenyan children can access that. So we must come back to normal with the precautions. We must give the relevant education to everybody, and we must each take responsibility. Even as a parent, I'm not able to take responsibility for my children because I have to live every day to go and look for food. Without looking for food, we will not eat. We can't just say that we are not going to eat, we are not going to survive. We must survive. So someone is also talking about the high numbers of pregnancies. That is the same situation. Nobody is taking care of the children. The children are too much for parents, especially struggling parents in the slums. They have to live every day. Children cannot stay in those small stuffy houses. So they end up going into other people's houses. People will take advantage of them. You walk outside Kibera today, children don't even have masks. So why can't we invest in giving children the right information? In our office, we have never closed. We only closed for a weekend when things were still very hot. Children came and camped outside our office because they see our office as a safe space. So we have been working all this time. We hold small programs with younger girls, and we are now trying to work with these girls as our own ambassadors. We are going to do door-to-door conversations around pregnancies. Nothing is working. We have stopped working. We have stopped living. And is it possible for us to stop living because COVID is there? COVID is there, yes. But let's organize ourselves, accepting that COVID is there, and we must take precautions, and we must live. We can't just kill ourselves.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jane. Lani, your take on this, and then we close. Thank you very much, Jane. Very insightful. Lani? Lani? We cannot hear you.
You hear me there?
Yeah,
Maybe?
okay, now.
Yeah,
we can hear
okay.
you now. Okay,
Yeah.
please.
I think I would like just to address two important things about the questions on how can different groups can work together. And I think that COVID has taught us that, first of all, we cannot go back to normal because the normal we were living on was wrong. And now this is a challenge that we have to overcome. And two ways to overcome this is SDG 17. Like we need to have partnerships, and if as different organizations maybe don't have enough funding to work with, and we are limited in our own resources, we need to come together in partnerships with civil society, private sector, academic institutions, and the government. And the second one is we have to build networks in both approaches, from the upside down to the bottom up. And I think that's very important. If we want to work together and overcome this crisis, the local is really relevant to solve this crisis, but also to bring those channels that allow us to cooperate in both ways. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Lani. Okay, I see Mary. Mary, you dropped off for a while. So can you please come on board now with your presentation? We have finished the Q&A, but we'd like to give you a chance to do your presentation. And if you can, so sorry, but we have to make it short for about 3 minutes. Mary, let us welcome Mary Chisu. She's a human rights defender and journalist from Northern Zambia. Mary, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I know I had the challenge of a network That's because I'm coming from the rural part of Zambia and northern province, and the access to internet is too bad. Okay, going straight to the points. Having started in China in December 2019, COVID-19 has hit also Zambia, especially also in rural areas. Started in March. Despite the health implications and loss of lives, the pandemic has strained the healthcare systems, disrupted the education system in rural areas. It has also weakened business environment because you know, in where I stay is where the agriculture comes from. It has also led to job losses. Most of the young people in the rural areas, they have lost their jobs. It has disrupted social life with the lockdowns and curfews in our region. All this, of course, has happened in the context of implementing the 2030 agenda for sustainable development, where the public service and public servants are critical. That's about the lesson I learned, and what I would want my government or maybe states or maybe governments to do. I think governments must promote and protect access to free flow of information during the pandemic. You know, human health depends not only on readily accessible healthcare, but also on accessible to accurate information about the nature of the threats and the means to protect oneself. The right of freedom of expression, which includes the right to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas of all kinds through any media, applies to everyone, everywhere, without leaving anyone behind, be it in the rural area where I live. And of course, journalism serves a crucial function at the moment, and public health should be considered, and especially in rural areas, we are having a lot of issues whereby we doesn't have like equipment that maybe the boats, the protection equipments for COVID-19. Our rural health personnel, they're just working just without any of that. As governments are providing information on the performance of SDGs through the VNRs, it is a critical platform to evaluate the current contributions to achieving SDGs with the COVID-19 responses. The various data that has been highlighted can further be used implicitly to target the furthest areas like this one and this pandemic and provide targeted COVID-19 response and stimulus. Zambia, as now, is amongst the countries presenting the VNR, and government should continuously engage the stakeholders, post-VNR presentations to work on COVID-19 strategies that have an impact on SDG and 7th National Development Plan, areas that require urgent action and attention through a multi-sectoral approach, bringing on board the perspectives of youth advocates as well as major stakeholders of a group highly affected by the pandemic. Just to mention here in where we are living, I'm on the ground where I'm bordering. My district here is bordering with Tanzania, Congo, Burundi. So we are having a lot of issues concerning COVID-19, and as frontliners, we are being affected, though we are not infected, but we are being affected.
Mary, can you wrap up now?
Yeah, I'm wrapping up, and we are aware of a growing use of tools of surveillance and technology to track the spread of the coronavirus. While we understand and support the need for active efforts to confront the pandemic, it is also crucial that such tools be limited to use and that individual rights to privacy, non-discrimination, the protection of journalistic sources and other freedoms be strictly protected. We strongly urge that any use of such technology abide by the protections and only be available according to domestic law that is consistent with international human rights standards. And in conclusion, we're saying this is when it is key to take heart in resilience as a community and an opportunity to use social media as a tool for community therapy and community communication rather with each other on the position note of solidarity. We'll still continue be using the media and other tools to fight against COVID-19 and engage towards, of course, crafting solutions and SDGs at the center. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for pointing that out. They have a very difficult position in terms of third world countries. You know, countries from the South really suffer from that kind of digital exclusion because we don't have internet in many of the rural areas. So this shows how much inequality that COVID-19 has exposed to all of us. So I'd like to thank everybody, the panel, for the very rich discussions that you have provided us, giving us a picture of what you are in right now in terms of the COVID-19 coping and the will to work on the Agenda 2030 and the SDGs. So thank you very much. We come now to the next part of our program. We are looking at the lessons learned and opportunities for building momentum towards the decade of action. And to start off, we have Marina Ponti. She's the director of the SDG campaign, action campaign of the UN. Marina, you have the floor.
Good evening, Becky. Thank you, and thank you to everyone for joining this event. And let me start by giving a special thanks to the government of Korea for having supported last year the grassroots mobilization last September. And I think it's important, as we hear many stories from very vulnerable community, from slums to rural community, it's really important to give tools and to give resources to those organizations so that they can join global efforts. So thank you, Korea, and we hope to have you along with our efforts also this year and in the future. I mean, 10 years is a long way, and we need partners like you. Let me now also thank a lot the speakers before me, because you lay the ground to actually help us understand in a very eloquent way the context in which we operate and the magnitude of the challenges that our society and communities have to deal with. And many you mentioned, and I think let me just emphasize Jane, mentioning about the deepening of inequalities, and also Lainey emphasizing a point which is very close to my heart. We don't want to go back to the world and the society we had before, because what COVID is showing us is the deepening is actually the failure of the system, is the failure of the society we had before. So having said this, I think it's very clear why the SDG Action Campaign, together with all these partners around this table, we want to launch this mobilization in September, because COVID has clearly turned our life around, but we see this not only as a challenge, but as an opportunity. For the first time, we have the opportunity to influence governments at all levels, everywhere, who are back on the drawing board to define new policy, to design recovery plans. So we really have the potential, by joining forces in September, joining mobilization, because we are at a turning point for people and planet, and we should join our hands so that September will be a key moment, and we should make sure that any recovery, discussion, negotiation or plan will be built around the Sustainable Development Goal towards just and sustainable society. So please join us. And now I want to hand over to the colleagues who can tell you more. It's from the 19th to the 25th of September. The General Assembly will be meeting virtually for the first time. is the first 5-year anniversary since the signing of the SDG, and is also the first time, you know, and is also the 75th anniversary of the goals. But very important is the first time all these government at all levels are defining, you know, new plans for recovery. And we need your voice and action to make sure that the society that we are now rebuilding will be different from those behind us, and will be built around justice and climate justice and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marina. Next, we have Alice.
Thanks, everyone. And to echo Marina, thank you to everyone who's spoken so powerfully. So I think September 2020 is a unique moment. We know this has been a pretty horrendous year so far. It's not what we all expected. We thought it would be a super year of big summits and big opportunities to make progress on gender equality, on poverty, on inequality and climate change. Most of those things are happening next year, but we still feel we have a big opportunity in September, as Marina says, the 5th anniversary of the SDGs, the 75th anniversary of the UN, and the first virtual UN General Assembly that could be more inclusive than ever before. But it's really important that civil society and people around the world raise their voices to say, actually, leaders can't continue as business as usual. We have to make this a turning point. So what we really want to do, and I think, you know, we've heard everyone is doing fantastic work, and that is amazing. And we feel that September can be a moment to come together with a unified voice to make as much noise as possible. So what does that actually mean? If we just go to the next slide. There are 3 different buckets we're just going to talk through about the opportunity of the Global Week of Action or Global Goals Week. Project Everyone is very much focused on the communicate side. I'm going to talk briefly about communicating before we hear from other people about advocating and activating. And really the message is just get involved. There's lots of different ways. We want to give you menus of options for you to do that, but also tell us what works and what doesn't. So in terms of communicating, we have to communicate with purpose. It's not enough just to talk about the issues. We have to do that with a reason and provide people with ways to take action. So a couple of things that you could do during Global Goals Week, so that period, or, you know, before or afterwards, or not really afterwards, before. You could host an event, a webinar, or a media broadcast. We'll be providing a toolkit with some key messages and some assets to help you do that. You could launch a public awareness campaign or hold a world's largest lesson, and that's an education program that Project Everyone runs with UNICEF, teaching children about the importance of sustainable development. And you can send a link afterwards. There's lots of resources online in lots of different languages that you can use. And then the one thing I really wanted to kind of focus on, and this is an idea that we're shaping as we go along, but on the 25th of September, which is the anniversary of the day the goals were signed on the Friday, we want to have a big global day of factivism, where we are sharing the facts about what is happening in the world, but also pointing people towards the actions they can take and should take in their political actions they could take, so campaigns they could support, activists they could back, but also personal actions that they could take in their own lives. We are working, and it's actually launching tomorrow if people want to check it out. SDGs Today is a project of real-time data, so everything has to be within the last year and updated regularly. So we'll be putting a spotlight on those facts, but also saying to people, share the facts that you think are important. What is going wrong in your country? What is going right? But what importantly needs to be done about it? So that's the kind of communicate bucket. And I will hand over to, I think, Ollie or Ingo.
Ollie. Yeah. Ollie?
Thanks so much, Alice, and thank you, Becky. It's great to be on this call as well. From Action for Sustainable Development, we bring together over 3,000 organizations, 80% of those in the Global South, and it's really fantastic to have voices such as those that we've just been hearing from to really shine a light on the massive challenges that we're facing in the world at the moment, but also highlight the ways that we can work together going forward and some of the ways that we might bring about the change that we all want to see. And I think, as Marina has rightly pointed out, this is a turning point. This has become a more critical moment than any of us would have expected when the year began. And now with the notion of the importance of this turning point, so that it is actually a moment when people can start to see a way forward to build back better, to have a just recovery, to have a different vision of what the world can look like. We did have a joint statement just a month or two ago on the 22nd of May, which we highlighted some of the key actions that we would like to see, some of the changes that we'd like governments to bring about, and we had a number of recommendations. That statement received more than 700 signatories. A letter has been sent out to world leaders. We actually had a meeting with the deputy head of the UN just a couple of days ago to discuss some of those key recommendations. And we want to see continued pressure, and we'll be working with colleagues on this call to really make sure that we have clarity on what those demands should be as governments start to plan ahead and start to think about what the next phase can look like. Secondly, when it comes to advocating, we'd also recommend that you might think about your own organization, whether you might organize a demonstration or a moment to mobilize. And we know that this year is particularly challenging because physical engagements have not been possible throughout this pandemic. It's possible that in September, some form of initial mobilizing may be possible. We're talking, for example, with a lot of the climate groups, 350.org and others who are considering Fridays for Future. They are considering a Friday climate strike around the end of September as well. And there's talk about using the mask as a place to actually tell your story. So design your own mask, have a statement on your mask so that you can use that as a visual representation of how you are taking action on your particular theme at this time. Finally, another thought will be to continue to maintain the pressure through social media. We will clearly be using Twitter and Facebook and other social media channels to promote this joint action, and we'll be looking to amplify different perspectives from around the world. So for all of you who are very active on social media, this is your chance to bring your voice into this broader mobilization. Just as in the last couple of years, we have had a global week of action. We're looking for that week of action again to really have huge impact, just as world leaders are meeting under this notion of turn it around, just recovery, build back better. This is the moment that we want to work together. So please do keep in touch, and there'll be some follow-up material. But I'd like to hand over now to complete the picture to the third part of our group, which is GCAP, and it's Ingo. Over to you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ingo Ritz from the Global Call to Action Against Poverty. So when we talk about activate, it starts at the community level, and we have heard a lot very good examples today. And this is also what I hear from our members in 58 countries, that they do a lot of support for vulnerable groups, like health support for older people, like water, or food support, for example, for migrant workers, so which is really important and great. But we also, our members also tell us, yeah, of course, that's not enough. The problem is so big, so governments need to act, and whether it's about health or social protection. So therefore, it's important that we come together and demand governments to do much more. And for example, there are different structural issues which can be solved only globally, like the canceling of debts, like the G20 finance ministers meeting will be the end of this week. And it's important that we as global civil society come together. And similarly, in September, end of September, it's not like a campaign like usual. So of course, I mean, we built the campaign in the last years, and that was very important to build the momentum, because we see at the HLPF this year or in the last years that advocacy is there, which is important, but it's not enough. So we need to mobilize to create the pressure from the people. And now at this moment, when more and more people are facing hunger, so we just got the report yesterday that in the last 4 years, each year, the number of people facing hunger increased, like 10 million more people last year. So this year, we expect or the UN expects 30 million more people going to bed hungry every night. So this situation needs a special mobilization from civil society. So we need to join forces, like what Ollie just said with the climate movement, but we need also to bring the issues of the people in the global south especially into it. So therefore we are trying to work together with this broad coalition. So we make different proposals, like we're working now on the toolkit, and so we have different ideas from the last years, and different communities do their different actions according to their own situation, but it's important that we come together under the common banner, so using the same hashtags, using the Global Week of Action together. And one concrete action I want to mention is GCAP. We are working on the People's Assemblies, where actually people representatives from the different marginalized groups come together at local level, at community level, and bring their perspectives into a local People's Assembly, and then together to the National People's Assembly. And then they address the national parliaments, the public and governments. And this comes actually together then at the global level. So this is a bottom-up process we want to strengthen starting from this September. There are many other activities, whether it's online, whether demonstrations, Ollie already mentioned. So the idea of this Global Week of Action is really to bring all of these together. We like to get your inputs and your feedback, and then we will prepare further information and also a toolkit, which will be sent by mid-August. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ingo. Thank you to Ollie, to Alice, Marina, and everyone else. I am very sorry that we will not have any more time for questions and answers for the second set of panelists. But I'd like to close this conversation to say that we have been turned back, definitely. We are on reset, but we continue to work, and we want to work even harder so that people will not be left behind. There are more of us who are in dire straits now, but we will build solidarity through our actions to inspire more people. We will turn this around. This is our turning point. See you all in September. Thank you very much.